All right, so it looks like our big reveal of the quote-unquote hungry keyword has come out here today. Creative Assembly has released a little bit of some knowledge here on the food rework. So no new sources of food in technologies, rights, and buildings. This is really a greatly needed thing for the Skaven campaign right now, right? I mean, if any of you that have played the Skaven campaign to larger fruition know that the latter end of the campaign, the end game of the campaign, is mired with a lot of food issues. I mean, you remember from our Scroll campaign, we're already starting to come into some of those food issues, as you really can't quite get to a surplus of food, and you're always kind of at that mid to low portion of the food chain, the food scale. So today, what I want to talk about is this other keyword. If you're hunting for more news, stay tuned. And I apologize for the jankety setup here, but this is a Twitter video and they're kind of hard to scalp. But so if you're hunting for more news, stay tuned. What in the hell could hunting mean? And there's a lot of options here that people have been kind of kicking around the Reddit or on the forums and the stuff like that about what those options are for hunting. What could that mean? So next week we'll obviously get another little teaser here. And to kind of recap, last week we got our Dwarf Slayers, with the keyword hungry. This week we got our food mechanic with the keyword hunting. Now I think that at this point we can start to rule out some of the bigger suspected things, like maybe the legendary lords we were talking about, like Tretch, Craventail, or Ground the Paunch, maybe not as likely anymore. I think that maybe these little hints, these little kind of breadcrumbs are more hinting towards minor changes to mechanics that are already present in the game. But, you know, who would I be if I didn't talk about some of those things that would make a lot of sense for hunting? Like there's the relatively new Knightly Order, the Hunters of Sigmar, which came out not too far back, 8th edition End Times time period. So that'd be an option, like if they added that unit to the Empire roster, a Regiment of Renown Reichsguard unit, which is already in there. Zindler's Reichsguard is already in there, but it'd be really cool if they started to bring in those Knightly Orders. If we got the White Wolf, if we got the Panther, if we already have the Rising Sun, of course, but just to get more of those Knightly Orders into the Empire roster, I think would be really awesome to kind of help flesh that roster out. I mean, it could also be making a notion towards the Empire Hunters themselves, or Huntsmen, which are pretty much the bow and arrow archer unit of the Empire roster from the tabletop. But let's take a look at some mechanic. I mean, I guess before I jump over to the mechanic portion, another thing it could mean is something relating to the Wild Hunt and regarding anything to do with the Wood Elves. And you can really do anything to the Wood Elves right now, and it would be, I mean, like, they've got plenty of legendary lords to add, is what I'm trying to say. So you could be a legendary lord for that. It could be a unit for the Wood Elves, although the Wood Elf roster is pretty well represented in Total War Warhammer 2. But let's take a look at some mechanics that kind of fall in line with hunting, and stuff that they've kind of teased before would be the obvious addition of Norsca hunts. Now, we already saw with the last dev update that they will be adding Norsca. We know that. We know we'll be getting the 30th anniversary Regiments of Renown, all that kind of action. But they did kind of hint this picture here of the Phoenix and of the Hell Pit Abomination, giving them as options in the Norscan hunt portion of the campaign, which I'll be totally honest, I completely forgot about at one point until I saw that dev blog and said, oh, yeah, that's right. You could do those. So hopefully hunts will come back in a big way, because with their kind of added development time of bringing Norsca into Total War Warhammer 2, they will have hopefully had enough time to really flesh out some of their mechanics for the second game. I don't know about you guys, but I couldn't be more excited to not be fighting generic Marauder factions anymore. Like, it's so boring to play through something that's got like 5 units you can choose from. So I'm excited to see Norskins enter, hopefully, and color those factions a little bit more. Maybe be a reskin version for those factions. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. I mean, methinks that since they've been working on it for so long, they've got something devised that they wouldn't just have Ice Wolves in the heart of Lustria. So we'll see again how that works out. But another mechanic, and this is one that people have really been, I guess, clamoring for, is the treasure hunting mechanic. So the treasure hunting mechanic in Total War Warhammer 2 is probably arguably one of my favorite mechanics about the Vortex campaign, just from maybe just a nostalgic standpoint. It really feels like I'm playing Heroes of Might and Magic 3, except on like a cooler overworld and a much better battle system. But if you think about it, in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, you would go from location to location, you'd loot random treasures that were scattered across the map, and then, oh, boom, great, you'd get a magic item or more experience. In Total War Warhammer 2, obviously, we have the treasure hunting that you get, the delving that you get when you decide to search and go through every single ruin that you come across. And then in addition to that, you've got the treasure hunts or the treasure chests and events that are scattered across the entirety of the actual sailing portion of the map, the sea. That would have actually been a lot easier to say. It would just be sea or ocean, but whatever. So a rework of that, and one of the big things right now is it's really not worth it to go after those sea treasures unless it's the Skull Fortress ones where it's just a big submerged like half skull, because those always give you like 5,000 or 10,000 gold, a good amount of experience, always super worth it. And then all of the actual settlements, I don't know, I don't think I've really searched a ruin where I said, man, super glad I searched that ruin, because you've got usually 2 or 3 options, and most of the time it's either a bad, a good, and a really okay, just mediocre, neutral option for 3 options. For the 2 option ones, either really bad or really good. Like, you start a campaign and your legendary lord gets killed from searching a ruin the first turn. Not in any way reference to my Ark in the Black campaign that I swear to God I'm not bitter at still. Fuck. But this is a big thing that people have been kind of asking for, is getting the rework to the treasure hunts. And people have been asking for a rework on the food mechanic of the Skaven. And this is really Creative Assembly's way of delivering on both of those fronts, because we have needed some kind of not really facelift, but some sort of boost to that Skaven mechanic. Because right now, as you guys know, if you go to do any kind of quick battles with Skaven, it's the balance of power is really poorly calculated. It doesn't take into account any food consumption, and on top of that, food consumption and its intake is really scarce in the late game. So as you can see from this, when you've conquered so much of the known map, you have a very low, food resource pool, and this again will bring that in here. So I'm excited to see what we get next week. Hopefully with the launch of Total War Britannia, which will be here is it May 8th or whatever, next week, the beginning of May, we'll start to get a lot more teasers and little tastes of what's due in store for Total War Warhammer 2. I'm really excited to see what the future holds after May 2. I think that, like I've been saying, I think May is going to be that big tipping point where we go from just this relative drought after the Tomb Kings, no pun intended, bone dry type shit, to just this like flurry of content, or at least a development schedule that kind of lets us fall in line with that content release, or these planned releases where we can say, okay, hey, I know that there's nothing to play, or there's nothing to play. In my last video, I don't think I made it clear enough. I haven't even beat the Total War Warhammer 2 campaign, so I still got plenty to play. But at least it kind of gives us a roadmap of what we can expect content-wise, and hopefully that content will start to touch on some of the stuff that we've really wanted and been vocal about in a lot of the forums and a lot of the Reddits. Because remember, guys, they do read this stuff, so they at least try to give us little bits and goodies when they can, is what Grace was saying. But unfortunately, this hungry thing does rule out halflings. It does rule out ogres. So it looks like we're now onto the hunting thing, or the hunting keyword, which, it even could be Gorgons. Who knows? It just depends on how they want to do things, or how in-depth this update is going to be. The way I'm kind of looking at it now, the more this fleshes out, I see it as being a DLC, the obvious DLC. Your Norsca coming back, maybe even squeeze like an FLC into there, because we were supposed to have gotten one, whenever, and then like a super update to the game. And this is like fits the blueprint of what we've been given so far, but that'd be just like the 1-2 punch of like the ultimate delivery, right? You've got content that's brand new, you've got content that's wanted to have been in the game, you've got updated content on the current content. So there's content, all the content where there's content and content. But hopefully, guys, this gave you a really good idea of what's coming out here in May. This gives you a little light onto what hunting might mean. And if you have some speculation as to what you think hunting is, go ahead and leave a comment below. Always love to get that hype train chewing. and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But thanks for watching here today, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a good one, and take care.